Thank you for the intro. I'm really excited to be here today. And I think that the timing of my talk today is really great because you all had coffee and you are energized to see a lot of data on my presentation. And hopefully some of it will be useful and will spark some ideas that you can implement in your businesses as well. So let's walk you through the plan for today. First, I'm going to give you like a short introduction about company that I work for, about product that we have, just so you get a bit more of the context from which side my experience comes from. Then we are going to talk a bit about the ASO planning and prioritization, how we are doing it, and what are some of the key learnings that I got along the way. After that, we will be strongly focusing on ROI and measurement of the impact of ASO, and as well as other marketing activities. So hopefully it will be interesting. So let's just kick it off. About my company, I work at Nordeus. Nordeus is a mobile gaming company from Serbia. We are part of Take-Two Interactive since last year, and we are shipped 3 live games out there. Our most successful game actually is Top 11. Top 11 is a football management game available on mobile stores, and it's been live for, believe it or not, 12 years already. So it's a product that is live and out there for a long period of time, and that fact brings its own challenges in facing our everyday job. So we are just trying to create new content and to engage our users with new releases. Here you can see our latest release. That's a 3D live match introduced in Top 11. It was the biggest release and was one of the features that was most requested by our community, and we tried to deliver that. So that's a little bit about us. Let's just dive straight into the topic of today's speech. First, I wanted just to share how we are approaching planning of our ASO activities and our ASO projects. So when it comes to the planning, there are 2 things that seemed important to me, especially in the early beginnings of forming our ASO team. So first thing was to know the overall marketing plan and to have a holistic picture of all activities planned within your marketing team. This means if we are planning a big release in a couple of months, we need to align between all the disciplines what the activities will be and to figure out how those fit together in the best possible way. So that's let's say, the baseline. And after that, the other thing that is really important is to have really good ASO testing plan. This is a live thing. It happens. It's ongoing. You need to have your tests and hypotheses ready for testing, and you need to have your plan well-defined, but on the other hand, you need to ensure that that plan is delivered. So it's not just enough to have a plan and then fail to deliver it. It's important to have it delivered also. So that's why I think that these 2 things work nicely together in helping you to plan ahead and then in the meantime to do what needs to be done to deliver your result and your plan activities. We can just I will just quickly walk you through one example. So let's say that this is some imaginary ASO timeline, and let's say that we are planning a huge marketing campaign and a huge release in August. So here are some of the key things that we will do ahead of that and how we will approach our ASO planning and ASO strategy. So you can see here some activities, what are the outputs in every phase. But what is more important, first I would say at the beginning, it is important to start planning on time. So you need to organize brainstorming, talk with the team, align everything and define what are you aiming for, what are you going to test. So that's, let's say, step number 1. After that, when testing started and everything is rolling, you have some data from the test, you have already gathered some learnings, you can think ahead. At this point, what I would like to stress out is the importance of team alignment. So recently we have started having like bi-weekly syncs where everybody gather, and then we discuss our results, we discuss our creative direction, we discuss everything that's happened in the past period, and we are starting to think again ahead. That's something that's been really productive and useful to us. And that's why I think it's important to have those regular syncs with all stakeholders involved. And also ahead of the release, when all these activities already have happened, you already have pretty much everything set in place. You already have planned, you already gathered the learnings from your tests, and you know your direction. So if you have your activities structured like this, it's easier to deliver what you have set as a goal for yourself. I would say that along this road, there is always a question of prioritization. So we all know how many things we can do on the ASO front, but we also often ask ourselves what to do first. You can do so many things. So these are some tips that were helpful to me when deciding where to start and what to do first. Maybe it's more relevant for people who are just starting with the ASO, but I will quickly go through this. First thing is focusing on value. So we are thinking what will have the biggest impact on our KPIs, so we are starting for there. Then after that, we are running tests in our key markets. We don't want our results to mess up in the most important areas of our business, so that's why we are often running tests first in those markets. After that, there was also a tricky question of having right plan when you don't know how long your tests will last. So there is a bunch of tools that are available online that you can use, and based on the learnings that you have at that moment, you can calculate approximately how your test, how long your test will last, and then plan accordingly. This was helpful to me a couple of times, so you can explore it more or ask me later. This is pretty self-explanatory. I won't go into many details here, but what I would like to stress out is the brand guidelines. So in gaming, there are not so strict brand guidelines, but what is important is to have consistency. We learned that a bit on a harder way. You need to have consistency, especially within your UA creatives and with your ASO creatives. So they need to work together for you, not against you. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind when thinking about your creative direction. And at the end, this is also one thing that I think is not given enough attention. We are often tend to look at the disciplines and their performance separately, while it's really important to understand the whole picture and all the things that are happening at one point in time, and then we can distinguish what is the result of which activity. I think we're done with this first part. So we covered the processes and how we are doing it. And now I would like to tell you about how we are assessing the value of our activities and how we are trying to see what is profitable, what is not, what to do and what not. So in measuring ROI, in general, the impact of 20 activities, there are a variety of different approaches that you can take. And I think there is no one right direction. You can adjust it to your business, you can try different options, but I try to structure it like this. So first is holistic approach, which means that you are looking at your activities and all the disciplines as a whole, and you're trying to get the results and ROI, calculate the ROI of all of your activities. That's one way to go. The other way to go is to have more narrow, more focused approach when you will be focusing on one single activity, and then you should calculate the ROI and all the KPIs for that particular activity. I will walk you through both of these with more details. First thing, here you can see a holistic approach. So at any point of time, there are a lot of things happening with your product, and especially in marketing. If you have different marketing disciplines, they are happening all at the same time. And I believe that you all have faced the challenge to distinguish what was the impact coming from which of these activities. So what we are trying to do here, we are trying to avoid that problem by calculating the ROI of all activities combined together. So we are looking here at the total impact that our activities brought to our business. So this is one way to go. And now I will walk you through some examples. So here I have one calculation example. Hopefully it won't be overwhelming. So first thing, we have worked really hard to have a best possible distinguish between our organics and paid install, which is a challenging stuff to do. So we have some internal calculations that we are using for these purposes. And let's say that in this example, this is number of registrations for one period of time. And we have split off organic and paid. And here we need to understand how big of value are these new registrations bringing to our business. I would say that the best possible way to understand that is if you have some sort of LTV predictive modeling that's built and that you can use in these purposes. In this example, I assume that this number would be something that predictive model would say that this is the amount of ARPU that you will get from these users. And then based on that data, you can project your 1 year or for whichever period you want revenue, and then have it in your mind how much these new installs will be worth in a certain period of time to you. And then, of course, you can, then we will add a cost side of the things. You can allocate your costs for organics and for paid. And based on that, you can easily calculate your ROI for a period that you want. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward calculation. But this one here relies a lot, oh, it's okay. Tracking your organics and paid through your internal analytics tool and making the best possible split. Of course, it's not perfect. It's really hard to make the perfect split, but you should try to make it as more precise as possible with all the data that you have. And the other thing in this example, I relied on a predictive model. So this is rather simple calculation, and it can be done in any other ways, even without predictive modeling. So I'm going to walk you through that right now. So here is basically the same example, just the red part is different. So we are calculating the revenue now in the other way. How we are doing it? First thing, you can see LTV day 7 here. That's based on the actual data. So we are taking the day 7 LTV from the new registrations, and that's the actual data for that. And then we are trying to find a way how will we approximate the future revenue that will come from these users without any usage of any predictive modeling. So one way that I find useful and was helpful to me a couple of times is that you can use your historical data and learn from it. So what I did here, we are looking at the LTV to day 7 to day 365 multiplier. So basically, we are looking how fast your LTV is growing in the previous period, and then calculating the multiplier, which then you can use to have some sort of projection for your revenue. They might be the question or concern that how precise this will be. In my experience, these multipliers don't change drastically over time. They are more rather stable unless you have something extraordinary happen, but they should be more or less stable. So this could be a really good approximation of what you can expect in the future from your activities. And the rest of the calculation is the same as on a previous slide, so it's really hopefully straightforward. With this, I think we covered everything regarding the holistic approach. Now I would like to move to a more focused approach. You can use the same methodology or the same approach for this one, except this time you will be focusing and trying to convey your analysis for a certain specific activity that you had. And in this case, I think that cost allocation becomes more important because now you have to think to allocate your costs right to the certain activity and in order to have right results. So this is something that becomes more important when you are focusing on certain activities. So you can use predictive model if you have it, but as you saw in the previous example, you don't have to. You can do it in a more easier way and the way that is available to everybody. And also, I already mentioned this topic, but it's always important to have the whole picture in mind, to have all the activities online and to know what can impact your scale and what can impact your KPIs in order to understand the real impact of your activities. I have also here one example that I would like us to go through. I often got the question like, okay, we got Phiture on App Store, what was the impact? Is it worth to pitch for this featuring? Should we, shouldn't we? And then we tried to find a way how to approach this and how to answer these questions. So here I'm going to go fastly to this. So let's say that we got featured on App Store in these days that you can see here. It's 4 days, and you can see here some assumed organic scale. how we can calculate the impact on registration, how we actually can calculate what was the uplift coming solely from featuring. So let's say that we calculate the daily average in these 4 days while featuring was on. Then we are going to find our baseline. In the right part of the screen, you can see some baseline dates. But what's important here to keep an eye on seasonality and choose correct dates, and also choose the dates where you didn't have that much of the activities. Less possible is better. That will give you a clear picture. And of course, as I mentioned, you need to know what was the impact of other activities. So for example, we had some influencer campaign, and this is impacted 100 installs. So we need to deduct that from the featuring and assigning to that other activity. So based on these numbers, we can then calculate. Okay, here it is. We can then have calculated daily uplift and multiply it with the number of affected days, and then we will have some approximation of total uplift in registrations for the selected time period. And then we come to the next question, which is of course always revenue side, and how much revenue-wise will we get from this activity. So the calculation is similar to the last one. In this example, I use also the multiplier from day 7 to day 365. So we got day 7 LTV from featuring cohort, then we got historical multiplier. Based on those two, we are getting to the projected LTV, and at the end, we are estimating 1-year revenue uplift based on the uplift in registrations multiplied by this projected LTV. So as you can see, this looks really simple, and it can help you, I believe, in making your decision and deciding what to invest and how to make your decision in a more, let's say, informed way. So yeah, that's all for me today. I would just like to stress out a few things like highlights for testing. It's important to iterate. It's important to have regular syncs with team. For KPIs, I think it's equally important to talk with your team and to discuss creative directions, but also if you track your KPIs regularly, that could be a good sign for you where are the areas of improvement. LTV model is good to have, but pay attention if you're thinking to have one just for the ASO. Maybe it can be beneficial for some other disciplines within the marketing. And also ROI calculation, it's important to understand the impact of everything that you are doing. That's it for me today. Thank you for your attention, and thank you once again for having me.